So this is a really interesting little accessory for the Moonlander, and I think it really changes the landscape of what we think is possible with keyboard ergonomics. So one of the ways I actually enjoy using my Mac is sat in a comfy chair with the keyboard and trackpad on my lap. And when I used to use the Apple Magic keyboard and trackpad, there was actually a wooden accessory that was available that was built for this, and the keyboard and trackpad sat nicely across your lap, and it worked quite well like that. But sort of as my keyboard journey went down the road of split keyboards, it kind of became obvious that I needed a different kind of way of thinking about this, because a split keyboard on your lap is quite unruly and much harder to work with. So ZSA released this amazing accessory which actually lets you work with a chair-based setup using these tripod mounts that go on the bottom of each half of the keyboard. And of course, having tripod mounts opens up all kinds of other options if you're using it on a desk as well. So the accessory is really nicely presented, really lovely packaging, and there's even a little surprise at the end of the box which I won't spoil for you here. So the kit includes the 4 screws and the mounts themselves, as well as this really long TRRS cable, which of course is what allows for the wire to go around the back of the chair and not be in your way. So installing the mount on the bottom of the keyboard is fairly straightforward, but the screws are quite small. Obviously once this is on, it's not something you want to quickly take on and off. You're going to want to come up with a solution that's pretty permanent based on this. So because the wrist rests are not going to be any use once the keyboard is in whatever position you're aiming for here, you're left with these little gaps, and they actually supply also in the kit these blanking blocks, which are really nice and tidies up the whole thing once the wrist rests are removed. So that's great to see. Of course, actually on the way I'm using the Moonlander, I don't actually even have the thumb cluster attached, so I've got another gap, which would be nice to see a blanking block for that as well. So I had great fun thinking of some different ways that I can use the Moonlander with these tripod mounts. We'll look at those now. So if you want to work on a sofa and you haven't got the armrests near you, what you can do is actually stuff Gorillapods down the gaps between the cushions and stick the Moonlander on them in that position. And of course, if you've got pets that enjoy sitting on your lap, this is really fun because you can actually work with a cat on your lap, and you haven't got to worry about where the keyboard is. Of course, this does depend on what you do with your trackpad. Some of the work I do, I can be quite happy without a trackpad. I can just work in Vim with the keyboard, and of course then I can have the cat on the lap. The dog actually enjoys sitting on the lap at the same time as the cat, and that is hilarious when that happens. It's a pretty extraordinary way of working. So if you've got an armchair with hard rigid arms, what you can do is use these SmallRig super clamps with the mini magic arms. And this is a really nice way of doing this because they can clamp on nice and tightly to the rigid arms, and you can position them in any position with these mini magic arms. So if you want to pick these up, I've got a link in the description below. You can use these links to get them from Amazon. It supports the channel a little bit if you do that too, so it's super appreciated. So before I tried the super clamps with the mini magic arms, I actually tried to use the Gorillapods on the rigid arms of the chair, so wrapping the arms of the Gorillapod around the armrests of the chair. And that kind of works quite well with a genuine Gorillapod, but the unbranded one that I've also got just wasn't sort of rigid enough to grip reliably in that position. And the mini magic arms and super clamps just kind of works better than that. But there might be some chairs that perhaps if you've got a little bit of padding where the super clamp wouldn't work, but wrapping the Gorillapod around it might work quite well. So Gorillapod's obviously also quite a good approach if you're on the desk because it enables you to kind of position it wherever you want. But obviously it adds a lot of height, so you'd need an arrangement where you can drop the desk height in relation to you and then maybe come up with something that works for you. And actually what I was finding I was doing before I started exploring this idea of getting rid of the desk completely was actually having the desk really low and the keyboard really low, so your arm angle is kind of dropped right down, and obviously the keyboard kind of rotates back to point up towards you in that setup. And I found that really comfortable, so this would be a good one for that, I think. So another option is some tiny little tripods, and I just had some of these cheap little tripods lying around, and that works nicely. You can stick them under the tripod, and it's just great for a desk. It just gives you a little bit more tenting than's possible with the Moonlander by itself with its own legs. So if you wanted a little bit more of a tent, then just some small tripods would work nicely there. So I think this is potentially the most radical of all of these ideas, and that's actually to forget about the desk, get rid of the desk, and use 2 light stands with the Moonlander halves on each. And then you can just walk into your room, stand there, and you've got them ready to go in the standing position, nice and dynamic. You've got a screen further away. That's really, really cool. If you wanted to mix it up and add some seating into that position, you can just drop them on the light stands and use a stool or something in between them. Very cool setup. So a little bonus one here. Now I've seen these on the splitkb.com website, haven't actually used them myself, but they look brilliant. And the idea with this, obviously the legs fold up onto itself and sort of creates this flat kind of package. So you could leave these attached to the Moonlander and you'd maintain some level of portability. You could quite easily carry it in a rucksack if you needed to go somewhere else, for example. So it's amazing to see ZSA supporting the Moonlander so well with these accessories that they're releasing. And I noticed they've just released the sculpted blank keycap set, which I think is the absolute ultimate manifestation of the Moonlander. Moonlander. Really cool to see them doing that. Definitely the best way of using the Moonlander, because you can then start playing with your keyboard layout and not have to move the keys around all the time, which is brilliant. So I make films on design, usability and workflow, where we're looking at things and how we can really optimize them in all areas of our life. If you click my name below, you can browse the channel and see some of the other videos I've done. I've actually done loads of videos on the Moonlander itself, as well as other keyboards, but also all kinds of different topics too. So hopefully there's something for everyone in there. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.